So how much is the correct amount of food to eat? This is a big subject because everybody eats every day. Traditionally, people are told 3 times a day is how much we eat. And then, of course, there's snacking, there's social eating, there's anxiety eating, there's comfort eating. There's so many reasons why people eat these days than just nourishing the body. So at the basic level, food is for nourishing the body. That's why we recommend whole foods that the body can digest fully and then take the nutrition, produce energy, nourish the body itself, and then give out the waste. That's the basic form of eating. Now, how much food should you eat? Like I just said, at the basic level, you should eat just the right amount for the amount of activity you're going to do on any given day or even any given hour. All right. For instance, if you're sitting at the office and you're hungry, but you've been sitting for 3 hours, you may not be hungry. The body's probably not hungry because it hasn't done any activity, but the mind is hungry. So we have to distinguish between mind hunger and body hunger. Usually the mind is way more hungry than the body is because of all the social eating, anxiety eating, and all the emotional eating. So when you eat, your stomach should be somewhere around halfway full. And then the other half is filled with maybe a little bit of liquid, preferably water, and a quarter, 1/3 is left empty. So that space allows for the gastric juice and everything in your stomach to move around. There's space for it to digest, and it digests fully and properly, right? And it goes through that process of breaking down, body absorbing the nutrition and giving out the rest as waste. And that's the way we should be functioning. Now, the rule should be the least amount of activity we're doing, the least amount of food we eat. So on that day that we're going for a hike, run, we're swimming, we're playing tennis, we're doing things and we're burning a lot of fat, let's say, and using up water and nutrition in our body, we equally replenish the body with that amount of nutrition. That's ideal, right? So we don't underdo it and we don't overdo it. So especially when you've done a lot of activity, that moment it's really important what you feed the body. Because let's say you have a big salad after you've been working out for 2 or 3 hours and doing lots of sport. There's really not a lot of nutrition in salad, so you're not replenishing the body. Whereas if you were eating some rice, some lentils, some good fat like olive oil, ghee, and those kind of things, then suddenly you're replenishing the fat content of the body and the water content of the body as well, right? So in the summer you would take a lot more fruits with a lot of water content. In the winter you have less fruits and you have more carbohydrates and things like that. So really start to think about food as nutrition rather than all the other things I mentioned, right? Because if you don't want to put on weight that you don't need, and at times we need more weight and sometimes we need less weight, and of course it has to do with how much weight you already have on you as well. If you have a lot of weight on you, then you need to burn that weight, right? So naturally you should be eating less anyway. And if you have less weight on you, then you need to eat more fatty foods, not fried foods, but foods, whole foods which are cooked and have more fat content in them, right? So this is really the way we approach eating. So how much you should eat should correlate and match how much activity you're doing and how much you need to sustain the body based on how much fat is on your body as well. And that should give you a good idea. But start by having the stomach halfway full when you eat, so you don't overdo it and you're not underdoing it. And then start by not eating later at night, eating earlier, and then going to the bed with your stomach empty. so your body can naturally cleanse itself during the night. And then see, do I need 3 meals a day? Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. These are traditional. They don't need to be followed, but each depends on you and if you need that meal in itself. The general rule of thumb for me is if you're doing more activity, then you might need 3 meals a day. Generally athletes do, because they're burning a lot. They're training 6 or 7 hours or more a day. If you're not in that position, you'll probably 2 meals a day is quite sufficient, with your last meal being the smallest and the first one being the largest. So this should give you a good indication, and listen to this again, because there's a lot of points in here that will ring true. But how much you should eat should always be dependent on how much your body needs. And as we get older, we need less food because we're generally not as active. That's why kids need a lot of food and they're always hungry. And as our bodies get older and older, we need less and less food, but we need foods which are dense in nutrition and fat rather than the quantities. So quantities get smaller and smaller as we get older. When we're younger, the quantities are a lot bigger because we're a lot more active. So that should help you out to understand how much food you should eat. And it's a moment to moment, hour to hour, depending on what your activities are, what your lifestyle is like, and what you're doing generally in your days.